Again, if love means bringing somebody into your life against the natural instinct of self-preservation, of looking out for number one, instead of preserving your privacy and your supreme command over your own life, you bring somebody else into your life, that's love, and that means there's going to be some irritation. It would be an indication of a lack of love or absence of love if what your husband did stopped bothering you. If what your wife does no longer concerns you, you don't love her. But if she's still driving you crazy, you love her. No one can drive you crazy if you don't love them. Some of you have chosen to spend the weekend here, Shabbos here, because it's a good way to spend Shabbos. It's a good place to spend Shabbos. Some of you actually came here because the title of the talk appealed to you. And you figured, if somebody has the ultimate recipe for lasting love, I got to hear this. So you came here actually expecting, actually believing that there is an ultimate recipe for lasting love. Yes. And finally, tonight, you're going to find out what that is. And all your problems will be solved. And life will be good. And we will all live happily ever after. Can there be an ultimate recipe for lasting love? If there is such a recipe, if people once had this recipe, how in the world could we possibly misplace it? You have something that precious and that important and that great, how could you lose it? Also, if there is an ultimate recipe for lasting love, can it work for everybody? The same recipe for everybody? With our different personalities, our different temperaments, our different beliefs, our different backgrounds, problems, baggage, and one recipe can work for all of us? Is that possible? Maybe what we need before we start is a broader definition of the word love. Because if we give it a narrow definition, then it can't possibly apply to everybody. If we have a narrow definition of love, it becomes very hard to find that love. If you have a narrow definition of love, then someone can love you very intensely and very real, but it's not the definition you have for love, and therefore you will not accept it, you will not benefit from it, you won't enjoy it. And that's why it is not a cop-out when we give love very general and broad definition. It's not because we can't pin it down and we can't be precise about it, but because it's not right to restrict love. It's not right to minimize it and limit it to one narrow definition. We could be cheating ourselves out of something very precious. In marriage counseling, you discover pretty quickly that when a husband and wife can't get along, are not getting along, it's not that they don't love each other, but it's because I don't like being loved that way. I want to be loved this way. We have too narrow a definition. We're a little too finicky about our love. A broad definition of love, and a correct one, is that love is a pursuit of closeness. Our native condition as individuals is very exclusionary. I am me to the exclusion of everybody else. My life is my life, belongs only to me, completely to me. Loving somebody else is an interference. It's a trespass. It's bringing somebody else into my life who doesn't belong there, because it's my life. I can only be me. So if I'm going to allow somebody else into my life, they're going to have to live by some very strict commandments and laws. You can come into my life when I say so. As soon as I ask you to leave, you leave. You come into my life to the degree that I am in the mood for. More than that, you're trespassing. I throw you out. If you're going to come into my life, I have to protect myself. So you have to click on the agree button. You agree to the conditions, because it's my life. Love means I have a desire and a need to bring you into my life. That's what it means. You may in fact be in my life, but you're not in my life enough. That is the nature of love. That feeling, that experience called love, is a desire for greater closeness. Generally, we develop a desire for greater closeness with a person in whom we find a natural closeness. When you see something familiar in another person, something comfortable in another person, that awakens the desire for more closeness, increased closeness. Because men and women are worlds apart, planets apart, there is a need for closeness. When you find something in each other, when a woman finds something in a man and a man finds something in a woman that feels familiar and comfortable, that is the seed, the beginning of a relationship. And if the desire for greater closeness develops from that seed, now you have a love relationship. When the relationship gets to be very close, it goes onto the back burner because you've achieved the closeness you wanted. So the love kind of settles down, becomes inactive, and waits for the next fight. Because when you get into a good fight, that creates a new distance that needs to be bridged, so the love becomes active again and says, no, 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 I want you to be close. That is the purpose and value of domestic spats. It reawakens the love and makes it active, because something threatens to create distance. This definition is a very useful one. When I say I love somebody, I mean I want more closeness. It's a little different than the love between a brother and sister, because there is very little distance between them. They are born related. They have very little differences or distances to overcome, other than physical distance maybe. But a marriage relationship has a lot of distance. You were born strangers. Until a few days ago, you had never even met. Okay, a few years ago. And now, there's all that distance to overcome, so the love is not only active, it is fiery, stormy, turbulent, intense. That's the way it should be between a husband and wife. When the love between a husband and wife becomes so stable, so settled, so predictable, so comfortable that it's almost like a brother and sister, well, you need to get into a fight. A little abuse has to happen so that using this definition, if there is pain in the relationship, and you start to wonder, maybe there's no love here. Maybe the love is gone. Maybe it never was real. You get angry at each other. And you even cross the border from acceptable behavior to unacceptable behavior. And you do something really nasty. Shouldn't that be an indication that the love is gone? Using the definition, love means I want you in my life, not out of my life. I want to live with you in my life and not without you in my life. In fact, I want greater closeness than we had before. If a husband and wife are angry at each other over some kind of misunderstanding or whatever, what is it that this anger, this frustration, this irritation, what is it telling you? It's actually saying, don't do that to me because I need you in my life. How could you do this to me when you're supposed to be part of my life? See, if you weren't part of my life, then it wouldn't matter. So the fact that I'm upset with you is because I want you to be in my life, which means I love you, and because you are in my life, you can cause me pain. Like that famous story about the shadchan who tells this guy about a woman he wants her to meet, and he says, well, you know, she's not perfect, I won't lie to you. He says, that's okay. She says, well, she's kind of nasty. He says, it's okay. And the shadchan keeps adding more and more faults, and the guy says, no, that's okay. And the shadchan says, how come you're so accepting? He says, because I'm not marrying her. So if I'm not marrying her, it's okay, I understand, she had a hard childhood. But if you're married to me, if you are in my life and I want you in my life, then everything you do can and will be held against you because it'll hurt me. You're in my life. Now what you do is my problem. If you're not in my life, you're wonderful as you are. So if a man is angry at his wife, does that mean he doesn't love her? If a woman is irritated by her husband's behavior, is that because she doesn't love him? Again, if love means bringing somebody into your life against the natural instinct of self-preservation, of looking out for number one. Instead of preserving your privacy and your supreme command over your own life, you bring somebody else into your life. That's love. And that means there's going to be some irritation. It would be an indication of a lack of love or absence of love if what your husband did stopped bothering you. If what your wife does no longer concerns you, you don't love her. But if she's still driving you crazy, you love her. No one can drive you crazy if you don't love them. So that famous quote, "You only hurt the ones you love," it's true. Nobody else cares enough to be hurt by what you do. That doesn't mean that if you want to show your love, you should cause pain. It's not an intentional thing. All right, having the definition, let's now look at the ultimate recipe for lasting love. Of all the emotions that a human being experiences, of all the emotions that make up the character of our human soul, love is probably the finest, the highest, and the most selfless. On the other hand, it is an emotion. An emotion, by its very nature, is a fragile thing. It's a fickle, unstable thing, which is as it should be, because that's part of what makes it so exciting. You never know where it's going to show up. You never know when it's going to be there, when it's going to hide, when it's going to flare up, when it's going to settle down. That's the nature of an emotion. Love being the highest of the emotions, it is also the most unstable. And therefore, when we say lasting love, we have to be careful. Lasting love doesn't mean static love, because if it's static, it's not love. So if you're thinking, I would like to have a relationship in which I am loved consistently, all the time, to the same degree, so that I can be perfectly confident that that love is eternal, lasting. It's not a good picture, because that's not love, that's just security. If you want that kind of love, go to your mother. Because the security that a mother provides is constant, steady, predictable, reliable. That's not love. Love is an emotion, a fickle, unstable, unpredictable, very exciting emotion. So what does lasting love mean? What does eternal love mean? Unconditional love. What does all that mean? It sounds too static, too fixed, unnatural. The ultimate recipe for lasting love is to create a life together that is lovable. You can't predict the emotion, but you can create a condition that will always be lovable. So in case you're in the mood, should you feel like love, here's something to love. That gives the love the stability that it needs. while the love remains fickle and unstable as always, which gives it its excitement. If you know you have something lovable, then when your husband's love is not obvious, you're okay. You know. When a home is a real home, and the child says, I'm running away from home, you know, sure. Go, run. We'll keep a light on for you because you're coming back, because there's nothing better out there for you than right here. I know it, you know it. You're in a bad mood, run away from home. But take a key along. If you know you have something lovable, if you know that the relationship is lovable, then you don't mind. It doesn't frighten you. It doesn't bother you whether the love is visible or invisible, whether it's in its up mode or down mode, whether it's being expressed this way or that way. It doesn't matter. You know what you have. That's the ultimate recipe. What is this kind of a relationship that is lovable, irresistible? Obviously, if you know that someone loves you unconditionally, you would never want to leave. But that's so mysterious. How can you know that someone loves you unconditionally? And the more you want to know, the more you're going to ruin it. Do you love me? No, I mean really. You're just saying that. Do you really love? What do you want? I want to know if you really love me. I think you do, but I'm not sure it's unconditional. How can I be sure it's unconditional? Have you seen me get nasty? Will you love me even if I'm nasty? Let's find out. You're going to destroy even a good relationship if you need proof that you are loved unconditionally. And again, that need you go to your mother for. So how do we know when a marriage, a relationship is lovable, irresistible? See, this is why we need to have a life before we have a wife. When you have a life and you know that that life is desirable, lovable, irresistible, and you're willing to share it with another person, you have every confidence that this is going to be a good relationship. It's when you're not sure about your life. It's when you're not sure about your values, when you're not sure about your principles, when you're not sure about what you want to make of yourself. It's very convenient to blame a spouse. My frustrations is because you're not good, because you're not helping me. I'd love to help you. What are you trying to do? Well, I don't know. And you're not helping. You got to have a life before you can have a wife. Let's put it this way. Real love involves intimacy. You can't love a tree because you can't be intimate with a tree. Some people think they can, but we're not talking about. So love involves intimacy. Intimacy means the removal of all resistance, as we spoke about earlier, that allows two people to merge. But how do we attain intimacy? But in very simple terms, how do we get close? If I want to be closer to you, what does it take? We can understand this from the goal of Judaism, to bring myself closer to God. What's closer? How do you get closer? There's only one way. You must discover, you must find, what is it that is closer to you than I am, so that there is a closeness that I am jealous of and want to achieve. This is so close to you and I'm not. I want to be that close. It's possible that I am the closest thing to you. There's nothing closer to your heart than I am. Well, then I can't get any closer. I am the ultimate in your life. If I want to get closer to you, it means there is something more precious to you than me, and I'm jealous. I want to be that close. How am I going to know what is closer to your heart than I am? Well, you're going to have to tell me. I can't guess. So, in order for there to be closeness, I have to reveal to you, you have to reveal to me. What is it that is closer to your heart, more precious to you than I am? And then invite me. Allow me in. Let me achieve that closeness. Let me be as close as that thing or that issue or that element in your life that is closer to you than I am. In some very general way, a man marries a woman and she becomes close to him like his mother was. If we've never experienced closeness, obviously we're not going to be good at it. So if I can't identify what is close to me, what's precious to me, what is my life really all about, where is the center of my existence, what is the core of my existence, if I don't know what that is, no one can get closer to me. I don't allow it. I've made it impossible. If I can identify what that is and not be afraid to share that, now I've made intimacy possible. Very often, a person finds that the marriage, the relationship, a woman wants a husband because that's the only thing that is going to be precious in her life. It's not going to work. You can't have the love person be the most precious thing in your life because you have nothing to offer. You're simply taking. You are needy. You're not offering anything. That's not closeness. I have nothing. No one ever loved me. I never loved anybody. I have no purpose in my life. I have no goal in my life. I have nothing. So please, be my life. That will not result in intimacy. But when you have something more precious and you're willing to share that, now you've opened the door. You've created an opportunity and a possibility for love to actually happen and for intimacy to exist. What is the most precious part of your life? Ideally, from a Jewish perspective, from a Torah perspective. Your life is the commitment that you have to serving your Creator, to fulfilling your purpose for which you were created and for which you exist on this world. What could be more precious than that? In your pursuit of fulfilling the purpose for which you exist, for which God created you and for which God needs you to be here, if in that pursuit you invite me to share that journey with you, and that together we will fulfill our purpose for which we are created, that is the ultimate, irresistible, lovable, arrangement in life that no one would ever want to drop out of. Suppose that is not your goal in life, that is not your center, that is not your focus, and serving God and fulfilling the purpose for which you were created is not exactly the most precious thing in your mind. Well, then what is? Identify it. Maybe your devotion, your capacity for devotion, the fact that you can take care of someone and love someone and nurture someone, that is your most precious thing. And you're very careful. You're very particular about who you share that with, so that when you do share it, it's the real thing. You're allowing a true intimacy. Because I am willing to give you this gift, which to me is the most precious thing in my life. That could work. So let's take a look at the ingredients. Number one, do we share a common soul? That's not a mystical thing. A common soul means, do we share the same purpose in our existence? Do we exist for the same purpose? Do we have the same mission in life? Do we have the same convictions? Are we worshiping the same God? Of course, there's only one God. But you understand what I'm saying. Are we in line? Are we synchronized in our vision of who God is to us? If my life is devoted to fulfilling God's expectations and yours is not, we have a very big problem. So, first of all, are our souls in line? To some degree, every Jewish soul wants to serve its Creator because that's what we were created for. So even the Jew who denies a belief in God, who denies a belief in Torah, who says Judaism is not his thing, that's only on the surface. In truth, he exists to serve his Creator, and on some level, he feels it. If you can bring it out, if you can dig it out, if you can reveal it, then you will see that you're on the same page. Because two Jews, two Jewish souls, are always on the same page. But we don't need additional tasks and difficulties in our marriages. So if the man has not yet discovered his soul, it's not the woman's place to take responsibility for that. So you want to find that you're already compatible, not only in potential, but in fact. In different words, are your souls compatible means, do you share the same vision and goal in life? Not in life, about life. What is your definition of life? It's got to be the same. In simple human terms, do you both look forward, have a vision, have a yearning for a house full of children? If you don't have that in common, you shouldn't be married to each other. So, what is your picture? What do you yearn for? What do you envision as life? It's got to be compatible. You have to be comfortable and impressed with the vision of your spouse or of the one who might be your spouse. If you have that in common, then you go on to the next step, the flavor of that vision. Everybody wants to have a family, almost everybody. Everybody sees a house full of kids as some kind of a goal in life, some picture of the future. But we also have different colors, different flavors in that vision. Some people see a house full of kids, all the children sitting very respectfully, very politely at the table, not dropping a crumb on the floor, never spilling their milk, never getting their clothes dirty, because everything is under control. That's my picture. That is my ideal. That's my vision, my utopian vision of a perfect life. Perfect little kids, perfect little kitchen, perfect little wife. It may work. On the other hand, you may have a vision of a house full of children, lots of noise, lots of tumult, lots of clutter. What a pleasure. So, the flavor of the vision. If you want a very disciplined, very controlled, very polite household, you're coming at it from the color and flavor of gvura, of discipline, of perfection. If you envision a house full of children swinging from the chandeliers, climbing on the climbing on the curtains, on the drapes, you're flavoring your vision with kindness, generosity. Sure, go ahead. Enjoy. Of course, both of them can be taken to an extreme that is absolutely not human. So, the second thing you check is, we have a similar vision in life. Do we have a similar flavor? Here, of course, you don't have to be exactly alike. If he's a little more gvura and you're a little more chesed, that's fine. Or the other way around. But you have to be compatible, if not exactly alike. So what do you envision? A life full of kindness or a life full of discipline and perfection? Whatever it is, it's fine. Go for it. Find somebody who shares that vision and finds it irresistible and lovable. And then there's the third thing. When you have a vision of your life and you have the spirit in which you want to pursue it, the flavor, the third thing is, do you have the capacity for holiness? Because a marriage has to be holy. It can't survive. It can't thrive if there's no holiness. Because if it's dry, if it's just human, if it's just two nice people, it's not strong enough. It's not deep enough. It's not big enough to constitute a really true marriage deserving of that title. What does holiness mean? Again, it's not a mysterious or mystical thing. Holiness means I have a marriage. I am married. I have a wife. I have a family. I have a home. I am married. This marriage of mine, or this marriage of ours, doesn't really belong to us. Is it mine to do with as I please? If that's how we think of it, then there is no holiness. Holiness means I am engaged in an activity, in a relationship, in a family, in a marriage that does not belong to me. It is bigger than me. There's a certain element that is divine, which means it belongs to God. In a very simple sense, no matter how well I am married, no matter how good I'm at it, it was never my idea. Marriage is God's idea. Can't steal it from him. I can't claim it as my own. I can't plagiarize it. I can't say, I decided to get married, I got married, I know how to be married, my marriage is working. Marriage is God's invention. He introduced us to it. He told us it was a good idea. He convinced us it was a good idea. Nobody else could. It would take God to convince us that this is a good idea. And then he tells us how to do it. You can't claim it as your own. So to claim it as your own is to deprive it of this oxygen, of this holiness that it desperately needs. All right. Ultimate recipe for lasting love. If you have a marriage in which your vision of life, the most precious thing to you, is being shared, and the flavor is the flavor you are comfortable with, and there's a holiness to it, an awareness that you are both involved in something bigger than the two of you, what's not to love? Who wouldn't love that? How could you not love that? So even if you're in an argument, even if you're irritating each other, even if you haven't spoken for weeks, you're not leaving. It's too good. That's lasting love. Because love means the desire to include someone in your life. And you want this person in your life, no matter how angry you are, no matter how nasty you are. It always amazed me. I would sit and listen to two people, to a husband and wife, put each other down. Really nasty. People can get so nasty. Sometimes I marvel at the brilliance of it. Literally, they become brilliant. They find ways to criticize each other that is sheer genius. You were able to turn that into a criticism? Wow, you are so creative. And they really go at it with a passion. And they tear each other apart and really abuse each other verbally. And then one of them will say, okay, so, if this is the case, I guess we need to get divorced. And the other party almost faints from shock. Why? Divorce? Are you crazy? What is that? If that's not love, what is? I abuse you, you abuse me, I hate your guts, I can't stand you, everything you do irritates me. You're leaving? Don't leave. That is so amazing. Well, we obviously don't love each other. We might as well get divorced. Wrong. The love has not gone away. You have not regressed back into singlehood. This person is part of your life. That's love. The love is not active at the moment because you're not pursuing greater closeness. That'll come too, as soon as the fight is over. When you have something precious, you don't have to be perfect and still be confident that you are loved. Because it's not just you, it's the whole package. It's a great package. Marriage is a great package. And if you have a marriage, or if you're going to get a marriage, or if you're going to be married, it's going to be a great package. And that is so lovable, you can rest assured that you have love in your life. When you add the ingredients of holiness, that confidence increases greatly. When there's a respect for this institution, when you yourself are in awe of what you're doing, that's fantastic. That is a great ingredient. And that will produce lasting love. For example, I get annoyed at my wife. I'm upset. I'm angry. I'm hurt. I'm shocked. I'm horrified by something she did. And I want to tell her what I think of her. And then I consider the fact that we are married. She's a wife. And I have to reconsider what I'm going to say, because a wife is sacred, a marriage is sacred, a home is sacred, and those words that I was about to say do not belong in a sacred place and are inappropriate in a sacred relationship, and therefore I can't say it. That's holiness. If we respect the institution, if we respect the condition, if we respect the holiness that marriage produces and creates, then the love will be lasting. Not because it's always felt, but because it's always right. This is something you can love. This is something that deserves to be loved. This is something that makes love appropriate. That's lasting love. And then you'll feel it one day and you won't feel it the next. That's okay. It's not how often you feel it. It's how justified and real the condition that produces it. So, focus on what is precious in your life. Find somebody to share that with. And then treat it with the sanctity and holiness that it deserves. How can that fail? How can that not be loved forever, even after 120 years? Why would it stop? Just because you can't fight anymore? That is truly an everlasting, everlasting relationship. It's not that difficult. It's not like in previous generations people were so much smarter than us that they figured it out. They weren't smarter. The marriages were incredible. The families were incredible. Not because they were smarter, but simply because they weren't distracted. There was less to distract them. So marriage was marriage, family was family, tradition, a wife was a wife, a husband was a husband. It's not that complicated. So go for it. It's a good thing. You know, when things get sober, we see the truth very clearly. You don't have to become a genius. You just have to become sober. Going to the Ohel is a moment of sobriety. Because there, all the foolishness falls away. You can't stand there and be foolish. It's just not appropriate. And so all of a sudden you find yourself sober. You find yourself relieved of all the baggage and all the shtick. And you realize who you really are. And when you realize who you really are, you discover that you're really a very good person. You're a Jewish soul. And when you get in touch with that Jewish soul, you suddenly realize why you exist and what you live for. And when you know why you exist and what you live for, you can invite somebody into that. When you invite somebody into that, you're careful not to destroy it, not to harm it, not to degrade it. You treat it with the sanctity that it deserves. And all of a sudden, you find yourself in a relationship that has the ingredients for everlasting love. Is that too hard? It's only difficult if we get distracted. It's only difficult if we forget what we're doing, if we forget who we are, if we forget what we're involved in. You remind yourself, and you're back in good shape. This should be the beginning of a whole new appreciation for who we are and what we have. If you're already married, reconsider. I don't mean It was going so good, you know. I just blew it. I don't mean reconsider the idea. I mean refocus. Refresh your memory. This was something sacred and precious when you started. Has it become any less sacred or any less precious? Remind yourself of the greatness of what it is you're doing. And if you're not yet married, go for it with a clear vision. This is what marriage means. A precious life shared with another person who finds the same life precious and who can do it with the same spirit and who respects it with the same awe. It's been done for 5,000 years. We can all do it. And when we do it, then we become a blessing to the world, a blessing to our children, a blessing to our community. And we actually bring God into everyday life because we're living every day in a godly institution. Every day of marriage is a godly day. Every act in marriage is a godly act because marriage is a godly way to be. What more do you want? What could be better? So, let this be the beginning. Now that we are clear-minded, now that we are sober about it, we can go in the pursuit of it without confusion, without drama, without unnecessary aggravation and grief. And God, who wants us to be married, will certainly help. He wants it more than we do. So you can trust that He will be helping, He will be providing, He will make it happen as soon as we get focused, as soon as we appreciate what it is we're looking for and what it is we're going to get. And next year, come back for Shabbos, already married, already established in your family, already settled into this magnificent blessing, imitating God on earth by having found a relationship that is intimate, sacred, and everlasting. You like? Can you live with that?
Partner with Rabbi Friedman. Visit itsgoodtoknow.org/support.